I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. Good evening, everybody. Anyone here for the first time? What brings you here? Saw your hand first. I know you don't know I'm going to follow up when I ask that. And since it's your first time, I never get the chance to explain how that happens. It's funny how that works. So,
All right, I'm here to meditate, to be with the Sangha, some friends asked me to invite you to join.
you're in good company there, so you probably knew where you were coming to. Yeah, well, welcome. Who else? First time? Yeah.
I've never meditated before, and I'd like to take the opportunity to do so.
Awesome. I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad I moved you, you would fall asleep back there. At least if you fall asleep here, I can throw something that should wake you up, Who else for the first time?
First time here?
Yeah.
I've been coming to the Zen class when I was a kid. So.
Beautiful. Nice. Well, welcome. Anyone else for the first time want to share why they're here? Great. Anyone facing lots of difficulty in their lives? Two of you, phenomenal. Two new guys. Anyone have anything in their life that everything is just perfect? It's good. Yeah. All right, so we're going to sit. We'll do a meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. Right? You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. A mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Often we judge things all day long, what we look like, what we wear, what we eat. We're constantly in these judgment modes. And the practice of meditation is learning to go beyond judgment and just abide in sensation of breath. Don't expect anything. If you sit there waiting for some grand aha moments or deep realizations, you'll end up being pretty disappointed. So we're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside the room. This is life. Life is filled with chaos and challenges and difficulties. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of that. My hope is that continues for 20 minutes straight, because then you'll get to see what challenges are like. So, posture. If you're on the cushions, often it helps sliding to the front third of the cushion, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you're on the chairs or benches, also just trying to sit up straight. Shoulders relaxed. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Moving throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. Sounds inside the room, sounds outside. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice. Observing sensation of breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. letting go of expectation, letting go of judgment from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. nourish your mind. Return to breath. When the body is still, rested, speech quiet, aware of all sounds. The mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. Slowly open the eyes. Slowly begin to move. The most important, the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your lives. Realize how you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with. Has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit, hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakening. He was a human being no different than anyone in this room. He began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every single day. The practice of meditation is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. The practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape. It is learning to be with the present moment as it is. During these 20 minutes of sitting, you had pleasant thoughts and unpleasant thoughts and neutral thoughts. So the Buddha taught very clearly, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. It's what we experience all day. But regardless of whether your thoughts were pleasant, whether they were unpleasant, or whether they were neutral, you learned what it was like to just sit with them. And that's very different from what we typically do throughout our day when these thoughts arise. Pleasant thoughts arise and we run towards those and feed those. Unpleasant thoughts arise and we want to escape from those and fix those. And so our entire life is spent just running to or running from. And this practice is learning to be with things as they are. That's not easy. That's not always fun. But it's the practice. You know, you look at the essence of the Buddhist teachings, I've never seen anywhere where he said, this is going to be easy, folks. There's no this is easy sutra. He didn't say this is going to be a grand time. He said this is going to be difficult. This is going to be challenging. You will face lots of obstacles on your journey. That's it. Often we run to Buddhism thinking it's going to be the thing outside of us that's going to fix us, save us, help us, correct us, make everything okay. It just points to the truth. And often people say, well, then what is the truth? Right? The Buddha didn't point out what truth was. He said this practice is about waking up to the true nature of reality. And for me, what that means is instead of trying to figure out what is absolute truth, it's to recognize that everything I'm thinking and saying and doing probably isn't the truth. It's just some sort of story, some sort of illusion, delusion, some sort of madness in my head that I'm playing out. So it's my truth. It's how I perceive the world. And it took me a long time, but eventually I tried to figure out and realize that, shocking, the whole world doesn't see the world the way I do. And never will. So instead of trying to figure out what is absolute truth, to me it makes more sense to recognize that my perception of reality is not reality. And then that's, I think, where you begin to work. Because what that requires is, if you wake up one day and realize, wow, you're not correct all the time. That forces you to have to actually open your mind and heart to the possibility that what? Others might have views that are possibly correct or real. And even if all their views are wrong, just like all our views are wrong, their views are different than ours. So even if we say this view is wrong and this view is wrong, it's still two different views that we as humans have to learn to deal with. And that really ties into one of my favorite teachings from Thich Nhat Hanh, where he says nirvana, freedom from suffering, is freedom from views. And as I share that, we all have a view on that statement and everything else I've said. Do I agree with that? Do I disagree with that? Does that statement sound pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? That's what we sit with right now. Everything we think, everything we say, everything we do is a judgment and observation and a view. And when I hear all views are wrong, what that means to me is don't attach to your own views. There's a slight chance that there might be other people who have different views. Unless someone in here has figured out how to have the view that everyone has. But I don't think that's going to happen to any of us anytime soon. So you begin to open the mind, you begin to open the heart, that we're filled with a world of people who have completely different views from you. And to me, I think that's where this practice starts, is opening up to realize that. And then when you encounter people and places and things that have different views, to meet it with loving kindness and compassion, not with hatred and anger. So those are my views at this moment on the Buddhist teachings. I always prefer to just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with at this point in time that I can respond to with an incorrect view. Yeah. It knew you were about to speak, so it shut off for you.
Thank you for your meditation. My question is, this kind of, I think, relates to impermanence and not having attachments. How do you deal with when there's someone that's a leader or someone that's a role model falls down? This is going back to something that happened yesterday. I'm in sober living right now, and the house manager, who has over 2 years of sobriety, had a relapse. And now the entire house is kind of like upside down.
Okay, stop there. That's enough.
Yes.
I don't like details. You give me enough. I can respond already.
Okay.
And I've known you long enough where I can cut you off and you're fine with that. Okay. The new folks, I'd let you finish, but you all cut off. I got it. I don't want to hear all
Okay.
the details on how the house is in uproar and all that stuff, right? So let me ask you this question. This person that you looked up to, did they ask you to look up to them?
Well, they would reach
No.
out a lot. No. Okay.
Did they ask you to put them on a pedestal? Did they ask you to think the world of them? Did they ask you to make them your role model?
No, they're not.
No. Are they suffering every day?
Yes.
Are they challenged every day? Are they struggling every single day?
Yes.
Do you think they have to fight all day long for 2+ years to stay clean and sober? Yes. And then one day they decide to not. And all of a sudden the view is like, wait a minute, you shattered my view of you. That's your fault, not theirs. The real, I think, so we can look at this in 2 phases. I can address it how I am right now, but then I can also address it from a standpoint of moving forward, because that's all we can do. Moving forward, I suggest don't put people on pedestals. I understand having role models. You know, we all have role models, people we look up to, people we admire. But that can also be very dangerous if you're not careful with that. It happens a lot in religious circles. It happens a lot within Buddhist circles, right? Where people sitting up here, right? I mean, you're brand new. Do you assume, I mean, they might have told you a little bit, but do you assume that maybe I know something because I'm sitting here? How dare you, I know nothing. But see, so we automatically, in all of our lives, create these dynamics where within Buddhism you have people who lead who are unenlightened, ignorant fools, all of us. And we do our best to share our understanding of Buddhist teachings while we still roam around in our world of ignorance, right? There's a whole history of religious leaders, Buddhist teachers who've taught for years and years and years, and then done lots of horrific, disgusting, terrible things. It doesn't mean what they said wasn't true. It just means they didn't do it or couldn't do it. It doesn't mean somebody who is leading a house and telling everybody to stay clean and sober for 2 years doesn't believe that. It just means they didn't do it. My suggestion is not to make the mistake of putting people on these pedestals and holding them to some high standard, because in most cases, they're not asking for that, you know? And then again, moving forward, the question is, how do you respond? You respond with wisdom, which says, man, I'm really sorry that they relapsed or whatever it is that they did, you know? But what we tend to do is we think, how does them going out affect me? They might not wake up tomorrow. But we tend to look at it as, how's it disrupting the house? Which I get it, it makes sense too, but don't make it so much about me, me, me. Is that enough to think on for now? Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder sometimes about the importance of meditation. First, you say nothing big's going to happen, you're not going to float away, no experiences, we're just going to breathe. And then you said this is going to be hard, no one said it's going to be easy. It sounds like just another one of life's problems. Why should I have another difficult something? Life itself is hard, I'd rather have another.
I agree. I mean, maybe we're wasting our times meditating completely. You know, the only way to answer that is for each individual to recognize, how is this practice of meditation impacting my life? If someone sits down, yes, I always say you're not going to float. My eyes were gazed down. I didn't float. Any in here float? No. Anyone have any magical, mystical experiences? Maybe. I don't know. But those are all in your head, not mine. Right? And did anything really happen to any of you other than you just sat and dealt with all the noises and sounds and tried to move or not move? And I mean, you just were present, right? So all of that I say at the beginning is relatively truthful. And then I say it's going to be challenging and difficult to stay in the present moment. Does anyone have a difficult, challenging time staying in the present moment? Did anyone feel like crap before they walked in here? Sorry, I shouldn't have looked at you guys, but you just, you're all brand new. And you were hiding out in the back and I dragged you in the front. So did you feel maybe like crap when you came in? Dude, how do you feel now? How do you feel now? At ease, okay? So for these gentlemen, they felt like crap and now they feel a little more at ease. I know I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, but is that a fair statement, right? So maybe it worked for them. Was it easy to do? No. Was it hard to sit relatively still and quiet for 20 minutes? Absolutely. Right? So the real question is, does it benefit you or not? If it benefits you, and this is for everybody, then phenomenal, do the practice. But if cultivating a meditation practice makes things more challenging and more difficult and more miserable, then by all means, you know, go play some music right now. Right? That's, I know for me, I have to do this every day or I'd be a mess. Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks, Al. Yeah.
What is your recommendation for just for a meditation, beginner meditator?
Beginner meditator, recommendation. I mean, now that you're all like one time into this, my suggestion for you and for everybody really is many of you are newer to this. Some of you have been doing this maybe 30, 40 years, right? My suggestion always is, at whatever stage you're at, make sure you're doing it every day. Just like brushing the teeth, just like combing the hair, do it every day. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes, 40 minutes, it could be 3 minutes. Just begin to develop a daily practice of meditation. Find a space, you can sit down comfortably in a chair or cushion, whatever, and just take 2 or 3 or 5 minutes and just observe sitting. Sitting and breathing, I hear the sounds. Sitting and breathing, I notice my leg or my knee hurting. Sitting and breathing, I'm aware of thoughts as they come and go. Sitting and breathing, I don't want to be sitting here anymore, right? Just sit for a couple minutes each day. And don't complicate it. You don't need a bunch of stuff. You don't have to come to a class. I mean, you're welcome to, but you don't need all those things. You just need a crazy mind, which you're human, so you have, and a few moments. And so for beginner or anyone who's been doing this a long time, it's the same recommendation. And also my suggestion for you or anybody who's maybe newer to this practice is to not go into it thinking that you're going to get like better at it. Sitting and breathing is just sitting and breathing. That's it. I don't know that you can actually get better at that. Like, do you sit better? Do you breathe better? Right? Just sit and breathe every day, as often as you can, without doing anything else. Give yourself that time. And where you begin to see benefit from this practice, for most people, is not here in meditation, but actually when you go through your day and you recognize you're not triggered as quickly. Things that usually would, frustrate you and set you off, you're able to observe it and watch the gap as it arises in you. Someone triggers you and you want to respond. And you realize that craving to respond is just what? It's a thought. And you can let that thought go just like you sat with 20 minutes of thoughts. You didn't act on any of them. You ever had any thoughts that you acted on that completely ruined your life for a little bit? 1 or 2, right? 3 or 4. So if we take a little more time and don't act on every one of those thoughts, it can drastically change our life. And that's where the meditation practice slowly over time helps you recognize those thoughts and just let them pass. Yeah.
That's the answer to my question.
Great. Well, that's why I answered. Thanks, Al. I knew I'd get there. After 3 years, I finally answered one of your questions. Great. I didn't know what I said, but I'm glad it worked for you. Yeah.
I was going to share last week, and sort of relative to what's being shared today, and it was that it's something to do with. Someone had asked, like, why do you do it every day? What's the deal with, how much time
Yeah.
or how often or something like that. Anyway, and I have been thinking that And yeah, really, what is the benefit? What are my benefits? And the answer to that. And for me, and I haven't been doing it that long, but I've been much more consistent this year than I had ever been before. And what I find is that more often than I do it, and I relate this is like I parallel it because many moons ago was an athlete and I was a gymnast, and in order to do anything, any tricks to get anywhere, a cartwheel has to be done. And so this cartwheel is just done over and over and over, and then it becomes that I never think about a cartwheel when I'm going to do a full twisting double back or something, and when I go through life, what's happening for me with this meditation is that when I'm out and I'm trying to be as present as I can, and it's practice, and then when I'm out and I'm dealing with people, especially, and I deal with a lot of people in customer service, and what is happening for me is that the cartwheel is in place, and that I can become very present very quickly without having to say, oh, I need to be present right now.
Right.
I just get quiet and, or I just am quiet, just quieter than I ever used to be. And I'm able to hear the experience of the other person, and there is no reaction. There's just like an internalization of understanding for whatever their situation is. I am like not myself at that moment. I am just there.
Yeah.
And I did not used to be able to do that. I could not do that. And it's so rewarding, and it is so kind of there's so much more peace in my life on a daily basis because of that.
Yeah.
And so today, just listening, it was the same thing just kind of occurred to me that as I'm sitting here, the same things that happened, what's really interesting is like 2-3 years ago, the same things that would come up, and then we say, bring it back to breath. It's like now at this point, it's almost always the same 5 to 10 things that pop out in these circles around me. And what that does for me now, hopefully in this learning process, that I'm realizing that it's the same things that are coming up. I mean, I have different relationships, but it's a relationship, or it's a family situation, or it's an illness, or it's like these things are still the same that interfere, and then allows me to later on come back to that, think about it, and actually manage it later. But it just shows me this is where it's like having a dream almost, where your dreams tell you something about yourself, about your subconscious that's worried about something, or that happens to me in the meditation, and I don't know, it's just evolving into something that is making me a much more productive person and a much kinder person throughout the day.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, it's yeah, I think that's also a perfect response to, what came up earlier. And it's just having that baseline that's where we normally operate from. And most of us don't typically operate from a steady, calm place. We operate from a place of just absolute chaos, absolute madness. Our heads are just insane. And we have to work many people have to work so hard to I gotta get to meditation, I gotta sit down, I gotta shut up for 20 minutes and get calm. And then everybody needs to leave me alone so I can stay there. And really what I'm hearing is that's what you're getting closer to being at. Like you said, I think the cartwheel is a great metaphor. Clearly points out I never could have been a gymnast. But yeah, it's great. Thank you for sharing. Other questions? Yeah. There's this little shop called Buddha for You. It's open from 12 to 7 Tuesday to Friday, and 12 to 3 Saturday, Sunday, and it's right downstairs. And I'm pretty sure they sell some cool bowls. Last I checked. Yeah. Customer service there is a little shady, but other than that,
Do some cartwheels.
yeah. Other questions, thoughts, meditation, Buddhist practice? Yeah.
Did you have a particular, like, what was the catalyst for you? You said that you'd be a mess if you didn't do this every day.
Yeah.
What was the catalyst that kind of got you into this?
That's a longer story, but the short story is I just got tired of being a mess. You know, I mean, you grow up angry, depressed, miserable, pissed off, lots of fights, lots of trouble, you know, thinking you're better than everybody. That's a really crappy way to live your life for a long time, for 20 plus years. So it wasn't like, you know, I never hit, you know, there was no rock bottom moment that often people have, these like spiritual awakenings when they hit it. There was nothing like that for me. There was just this realization. I was like, I just don't want to live this way anymore. You know, but it's actually interesting you asked that question because I knew there was another thought earlier. And it's about more than just the meditation practice for me. Like, when I started going to the temple in 2003, which was, you know, a mile from here, I didn't go there to learn to meditate. I went there because I was an angry, depressed, miserable person. And all the meditation did was allowed me to become aware that I was an angry, depressed, miserable person. It didn't fix it, right? See, I get to argue both sides here, Al. You'll love this, right? The meditation just made me sit with my misery. It's like, wow, you're an angry, selfish, arrogant, bless you, egotistical. Did I say angry already? Yeah, person. Wow, this sucks. I treat people like crap. This sucks. I treat myself like crap. This sucks. I didn't leave meditation feeling like, oh, this is wonderful. No, I often left feeling like worse because I had to actually face the truth of who I was. And then had to make changes in my life. Now, at that point in time, for me, I went to the temple every day. 6-7 days a week, I was there. Because when I had free time, downtime, whatever it was, I didn't trust my mind in places or free to roam around doing the things that I would have done before. I knew how I would behave if I went to a Buddhist temple. So I went there constantly. I didn't go there to meditate. I went there to do stuff. I went there to stay busy. I went there to stay occupied because I didn't trust my own mind. But I knew there it was a safe environment, that I could be of service and help the people at that temple. And that's why, for those of you who know me so long, and especially more recently, like, I don't push people to care for the temple because I'm looking for somebody to clean the floors. It's because I know what you're probably doing if you're not here. Not really, I don't want to know. But, you know, it's why we created a temple of our own. Not just to teach people to meditate so you can, like, escape from all your crap, but so that you can actually figure out what is the crap in your life, and then you can make changes outside of here. But to me, that's what temples are there for, to have safe, comfortable environments where you can just be you. All your craziness, all your madness, to go beyond judgment, just be with yourself, and then figure out, what do I need to do to change my life? And I had to be the temple to make that happen. Nothing else was working. You know? So of course it's great that we all come to meditate, but somebody said to me earlier, I talked a week ago about sacred spaces, you know, temples and other places that are sacred, and how we treat sacred spaces that we go to. And she just said to us earlier today that she was, I forget where, but hiking somewhere. And to her, where she would go hiking, it was a sacred space. And she noticed how disgusting people treated it. So she was like, man, how come you're making me think? It's like, that's what we're trying to do. Make you think about your life and the places you're at. Yeah.
I know you talked about this before, but can you elaborate on your thoughts on full attachment or total involvement and total non-attachment.
Like total involvement and total non-attachment?
Yeah.
They're actually the same thing. That wasn't enough for you? It's like 8 o'clock on the dot. I summed it up and we're still out of here by 8 o'clock. So total involvement, total non-attachment, right? And we'll close on this. I'll kind of, just for those who might be new to Buddhism, non-attachment is one of those key things that it's really a fundamental teaching within Buddhism. And for those, again, who might be new, it doesn't mean that you don't care. Non-attachment doesn't mean that you don't love. Non-attachment doesn't mean that you're like closing yourself off. Non-attachment is actually the opposite of that. It's endless, complete love and care for everything and everyone at all times, but understanding the impermanence of that condition, right? So to be non-attached to family, to friends, to loved ones, whatever it might be, means that you fully love them, you're fully there for them, you're fully committed to that dynamic, but you also understand that you don't own them, you don't control them, right? Talking with parents a lot around the ideas of non-attachment, right? Non-attachment towards children. It doesn't mean you don't love them and care them, but you understand that that child at some point in time, they're going to be on their own. And all the attachment in the world that you have to them is just going to torture you. You know? I mean, I don't suggest you let 5-year-olds roam free, right? But you got a teenager, whatever it might be, at whatever age, they're going to go do and say what they want to do and say, just like we all did what we wanted to do and say. And our attachment to expecting them to be a certain way is just going to torture ourselves, right? So non-attachment doesn't mean you don't care, right? So when the question around non-attachment, what I'm hearing is like running to or running from. I'm either all in or I'm not in at all. It's kind of what I'm rephrasing your question in my head. Is that a fair way to put it? Or no?
Yeah.
So all in this way means you're all in at not being that way. That might take a minute, but my caution is that you don't view non-attachment as not caring or removing yourself from it. It's fully engaged in everything. They're the same thing. That's all I got right now. We got a whole year to explore this, but that's you know, yeah. When we run this way, we're not running that way, and not running that way is the same thing as running this way. I know that doesn't make much sense, but that's all I got. Yeah. The last thing I'll say on that, just to kind of close, is that what I've learned from this practice is to not close the mind or heart to the present experiences. Because a lot of the present experiences are not going to be comfortable. But waiting right behind those is more present moment experiences that are not comfortable. That's the first thing the Buddha said. Life is filled with discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, struggle, challenges, suffering. It's filled with that. Understand the cause of it and work to change those causes so you suffer less, ideally. So, anything else before we close? All right, cool. So we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Max, during his time of healing, and his family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering.